Shabbat Shalom. Mazel Tov to the Hirsch family for this wonderful simcha. That's the best Mazel Tov right there. Mazel Tov to Meir Sher as he's celebrating his 60th birthday. Woo! Don't worry, 60's the new 50, so you're fine. So a couple of months ago, I bought a share of stock. I became a shareholder. Now, before you get too excited, it was just one share of stock. They no longer send out shares, but this is what says I bought a share of stock. It was $68.04. One share of stock of Citizens Bank. Now a proud owner of Citizens Bank. Actually, it's really like a tiny piece of Citizens Bank. But I am an owner, and I'm. Now you might ask, why did I do that? Well, if you're a shareholder, you get to go to the annual shareholders meeting, which is held at their headquarters in Providence, Rhode Island. And that's exactly where I went with a group of clergy and lay leaders on Thursday, about a week ago, April 23rd. 7 of us went because of Citizens Bank's financial relationship with two corporations. One is called Core Civic, and the other one is called the GEO Group. Now, these companies do something for profit. They build prisons. Didn't know this was a profit-making situation, but that's what they do for ICE. Now, the Greater Boston Interfaith Organization that we are proud members of, the Emunah Social Justice Community, I think are leaders of that organization. Now, we, as well as the de-ICE Citizens Coalition, have been calling for a simple thing. Citizens Bank, why don't you pull back on your relationship with these companies? And so, we went to the shareholders meeting. There were a lot of people there outside, a lot of energy, a large protest led by this coalition, all kinds of partners, all kinds of people, including students, Brown University students, member of the GBIO team, and my son was there with the students, so I was proud. I was really excited as we were walking in. It's kind of like, yes, my first shareholders meeting. How many of you have been to a shareholders meeting? Okay. All right. You and me. I had no idea what to expect, but I was excited. It was on the top floor. It had a beautiful view of the Capitol. We all walked in wearing our suits, and everyone looked at us and thought we were shareholders, which of course we were. And so they started booing us. That was a little bit of a bummer. But when we came out, everything was fixed and they all understood, and we had a press conference and clarified everything much more joyfully. So given that out of the hundreds of people here, only 2 of us now have been to a shareholders meeting, I can tell you that they're kind of not so interested. And not many people attend the shareholders meetings. There were a lot of corporate staff who I talked to, and there was the new board that was being elected, and then there were a couple of proxy representatives of all the people who owe the bank, and they were representing people who voted online or by paper, etc. The CEO gave a really fancy schmancy presentation. There were charts and numbers and all kinds of corporate language, a whole architecture of profit and growth. I was really excited. And I looked up the price of the share of stock. I already lost $5. And then there was the Q&A, which was the moment we were waiting for. And no one asked questions except our group, who got up and asked questions. We asked about the relationship with these corporations, and we decided not merely to frame it as a moral question, but to use the bank's own concerns. The bank says it is a moral organization and it has done amazing good over the years, including in many communities here in Boston. So we asked them about that. We also asked them about our own money. You have our money. We want to make money. Is this good for business? That was a language that we thought would resonate. We asked them about these companies that are facing investigations, fines, lawsuits, allegations of detainee mistreatment, all of these things. We asked them about how these companies build facilities where people have died, where there are investigations that are documented about delayed medical care, about assault, about sexual abuse, forced labor, and other forms of mistreatment. And we should acknowledge this system hasn't just hurt immigrants, but it's actually taken up and held U.S. citizens who have been wrongfully swept up in this ICE detention. The CEO knew we were coming and had evasive answers already planned. We then asked for a simple thing, a meeting of us with him to discuss the situation. We didn't receive a clear yes, so after it ended, we kind of pigeonholed the CEO with his assistants and his entourage. We pressed them again until we received an agreement in principle. We gave them 1 week, till Thursday at 5 p.m. to set up a meeting. At 4:57 p.m., we received an email from his corporate secretary saying that they needed more time. Now, this is a pretty major financial institution. They are apparently able to transfer large sum of monies and make large decisions all the time about loans. But when a few clergy ask for a meeting about moral responsibility, now they need a lot more time. So we're acting. The GBIL has 11 organizations, congregations, and individuals who've pledged so far $13 million. Again, not a lot of their total deposits, but it's something, which we will start withdrawing from Citizens Bank. Our shul used to have an account with Citizens, but we left a number of years ago already. So join us. It's right here on this flyer, which I left outside. Monday at noon at their branch on 607 Boylston Street. Maybe you have the day off on Monday. Come and join us as we withdraw our first $1 million and see what happens. Interestingly, today I was handed the Boston Globe, right on the cover of the Metro section. There's an article all about this. Which brings me to this week's Torah portion, Parashat Emor. You wouldn't think it has something to say about this, but we'll see. Now, the first half, Bennett handled with skill. He picked one of the most challenging texts in the Torah and brought us some wonderful insights. So I'm going to turn to the second half of the Torah reading, which discusses the calendar of sacred time. It lists all of the biblical festivals. The Torah states, as it introduces them, God says, "Va'amarta lehem," speak to the Israelites, "Moadei Adonai asher tikra'u otam mikra'ei kodesh, elehem moadai." Speak to the Israelites and say to them, these are my fixed times. These are my holy times. When you shall proclaim them sacred occasions. These are my fixed times. There's some subtlety and nuance in the verse, right? They are Moadei Adonai. They are these moments of divine connection. But they become holy only when you declare them to be holy. Asher tikra'u otam. So we're given this possibility of holiness, but it's on us to proclaim it. Now, our great French commentator of the 11th century, Rashi, writes the following. שמעברים את השנה על גלויות שנעקרו ממקומם לעלות לרגל ועדיין Lo higiu lYerushalayim. Rashi explains that the court, the Beit Din, the court in Jerusalem, can actually do something radical. And it can add a month to the year for the sake of those who live outside of Israel who want to get to Jerusalem for the pilgrimage festival, but they haven't made it yet. We'll give them a little bit more time. We still have that tradition now, 2,000 years later, as we make sure our lunar calendar is connected to the solar calendar. We'll actually do that next year before Purim and Pesach. We will add a month to the calendar. In other words, the way I'm reading this is sacred time has to actually work. If Pesach doesn't bring in the people, it doesn't work. It has to take into account for people trying to reach Jerusalem. And then Rashi adds another statement. Lemala midaber bi'ibur shana, v'kan midaber b'kiddush hachodesh. Then he points out this additional phrase and says, the first time it's recited, the Torah is speaking about adding a month to the year, but here it's speaking about how we sanctify the new month. So Rashi gives us two dimensions of human agency. Right? We can adjust the year. We can change it if we need to make things work. And the court is going to be the one to sanctify the new month, which then sets all the holidays in motion. That's a powerful theology. Sacred time is in existence in the world, but it's entrusted to us into human hands. Now the Mishnah explains how this was going to work. How do you announce a new month? So witnesses would go out. I don't know if anyone was outside yesterday. Gorgeous moon last night. Stunning. They would go out at the new moon, which is the first sliver of light you see after the darkness. That's the new moon. Witnesses would go out, and if they saw it, you needed two witnesses to come back to the Beit Din, to the court in Jerusalem, and say, we saw it. And the court would ask them questions, like any judge. Are you sure you saw it? Could it have been someone else's flashlight or cell phone? A little anachronistic, people. It's 2,000 years ago. All right, I'll work on that. Once they were convinced that they saw it, it was declared. The Mishnah says, Rosh Beit Din Omer Mikudash. V'ha'am Omer, and the people would then say, Mikudash, Mikudash. The head of the court would then announce, it is sanctified. The holy month begins now. And all the people would affirm that by saying, Mikudash, Mikudash, it is sanctified, it is sanctified. That word, that declaration, now sets everything into motion. If it was Rosh Chodesh Nisan, as we had about 6 weeks ago, then we know 2 weeks later would be Pesach. And then we know 7 weeks after Pesach would be Shavuot. Right? The holidays then flow from that moment of human declaration. We say this in our blessings. Mekadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim. God sanctifies the people Israel and holy times by giving us the ability to transform time. Rashi explains again here. She'al yidei kedushat Yisrael nikadshu hem, shilu lo nikashu Yisrael, lo hayu kovim chodashim v'korim moadim b'veitim. Through the sanctity of Israel, the seasons then become sanctified. Or if the people of Israel had not been sanctified, they would not be able to establish the months and proclaim these festivals in court. And again, it's a moving philosophy, right? The holidays are in our hands. And I think this is not only about prioritizing time, which it clearly is, but it's about our power to affect change in the world. Right? As Rabbi Willis said so beautifully, right? We have the ability to see beyond this moment to a more hopeful moment. Human beings are not passive in history, but we can be active. We don't merely watch the moon, we witness it. We interpret it. We testify about it. We declare what it's going to mean. Now, many ancient peoples looked to the sky and tried to build the most sophisticated calendars based on the sun and the moon, not dissimilar from what the Jewish civilization did. But we added a moral claim that human beings must look, deliberate, and then act. I think that's what we were trying to do at Citizens Bank. We weren't pretending that one share of stock is going to change the world, but we were refusing to remain passive. At this moment in American history and in Jewish history, there are many causes that need our help. There are many causes that need our voices, our hands. And the tradition says you can do something, even when you feel hopeless. And I'm going to say something about time, which is that I struggle trying to prioritize what's really important in my life. I don't always align my shares of time with the values I strive for. Email takes my time. Text messages take time. Logistics take time. Meetings take time. Worry takes time. It's a very big Jewish thing, and I spend way too much time on that one. But the real question we should ask ourselves is, did I make time holy? Did I make time for Torah learning in my life? Did I make time for friends and family? Did I make time for justice? Did I make time for someone who needed a visit, a call, a minyan, your presence? Do we make time to cry out for justice? I hope so. Do we make time for Torah? I hope so. Do we make time for family and friends? I hope so. Do we make time to come to minyan so that people can say Kaddish? I hope so. Of course, it's not easy. It's easy to get sucked into the many distractions of our modern world. But Parashat Emor reminds us to stop and witness and declare the time actually can be in our hands. Our task is to choose one piece, one share of time, and to say with our actions, Mikudash. This is a time for Torah. This is a time for family. This is a time for justice. This is a moment for showing up. Because holiness in time doesn't only exist in realms above, in spiritual realms. It waits for us to proclaim it here on earth. And when powerful institutions say, we need more time, our tradition says, what will we do with our shares of time? Will we let time pass, or will we make it holy? Mekadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim. God sanctifies us, and then we sanctify time. Shabbat Shalom.